A very long time ago, back in the Bronze Age, on the arid plains of Spain, not far from what is now Madrid, there lived a boy. His life was cut tragically short. He was only 15 years old. His name did not survive in any legend, any record. No one knows who he was. Perhaps the son of a wealthy chieftain, or an orphan no one expected home. But one thing remains certain. His death was no accident. His body was found in a chilling, heart-stopping pose. He was sitting in a narrow pit, exactly 1 meter and 20 centimeters deep, about 4 feet, buried up to his shoulders. Only his head and the top of his chest protruded from the ground. His face was frozen in a grimace that looked like a silent scream, and his eyes, empty and glassy, stared straight into the sky. He wasn't killed by a sword or strangled. He was buried alive. Why? Was it a ritual? A punishment? Revenge? The answers dissolved into the sands of time, but the earth preserved him as if the death had occurred only yesterday. And the most terrifying part, the legends. Old shepherds would whisper, "He who disturbs his rest will also find himself in the pit, buried up to his shoulders, with eyes fruitlessly searching the dark sky for salvation." 3,000 years passed. In 2021, an archaeological team from the University of Madrid arrived for an excavation. The expedition was led by Dr. Elena Mendoza, an archaeologist in her 40s with sharp features and eyes burning with the fanatical fire of science. She had dedicated her life to uncovering the secrets of the Bronze Age. Her team included Thomas, a graduate student, a skeptical ironist who joked more than he worked; Maria, a student, quiet but astonishingly attentive to detail; Felix, a German cameraman filming a documentary for a cultural channel. The first few days proceeded typically. They found ceramic shards, fragments of animal bones, and tools. All of it was material for a good scientific publication, but not a sensation. And then, the strange thing happened. Thomas's shovel struck something hard. He knelt, cleared the dirt, and in the semi-darkness of the trench, something white gleamed. It was a bone, and then an entire skeleton. The boy, sitting up, buried to his shoulders. Maria recoiled as if from a living being. Felix turned on his camera, and Elena exclaimed, "This is incredible! This could fundamentally change our understanding of burial rituals." But everyone else was silent. A cold chill ran through them, because the skull's eyes were looking straight up, as if he was still searching the sky for rescue. When the body was excavated more carefully, it turned out there were strange scratches on his bones, like crudely carved symbols. They didn't resemble known ornaments or runes. This was something else. That evening, sorting through the artifacts, Elena found a bronze plate among the fragments, engraved with an eye. Around it were 7 small triangles. "This shouldn't be here," she whispered. "What if it's an ancient Illuminati logo?" Thomas joked. But no one laughed. The symbol looked alive, as if it were watching them. Later, Maria, sitting near the skeleton, noticed the boy's teeth were unusual. Some were filed down, sharp like fangs. She felt a shiver run down her spine. Why would someone do this to him?" she asked Elena. Elena only remained silent, staring at the bones with a strange glint in her eyes. That night, Thomas woke up to a strange sound, as if someone was scraping the dirt near his tent. He peered out. A figure was sitting on the ground. The boy. A face with no eyes but with a smile. Thomas screamed, but when he blinked, no one was there. The next morning, he looked pale. "Just a dream," he mumbled, but his hands were shaking. Maria dreamed of voices, whispers coming from the pit. Felix claimed that shadows appeared on his camera footage that shouldn't have been there. And Elena, she felt strangely good, stronger, as if the boy's very presence was fueling her with energy. On the third day, Felix vanished. His cot was empty, and his camera lay next to the tent. The last recording started calmly. He was saying something in German, checking the microphone. Then he abruptly stopped and looked into the darkness. The camera captured a silhouette of the boy standing near the entrance. Felix got up, walked towards the exit, and the camera dropped. The recording cut off. "This can't be real," Maria whispered. "We have to get out of here immediately," Thomas shouted. But Elena was cold. "No one is leaving. We are close to a discovery that will change history." Her voice trembled with fanatical excitement. That evening, Elena found a stone knife near the pit. The blade was covered in brownish stains. She picked it up and whispered, "It was a ritual." Maria turned pale. "The boy, was he sacrificed?" "Yes, but look, he was buried alive, and he wasn't finished off. It's an unfinished sacrifice, an incomplete ritual." Thomas laughed nervously. "Great. So, we're the sequel now." And that night he disappeared. All that remained in his tent were traces of dirt and the prints of bare feet leading toward the pit. Only two remained in the camp, Elena and Maria. The night was unnaturally cold for the Spanish plains. The wind softly whistled through the dry grass. But beneath that sound, another could be heard, a quiet scraping. Maria sat, hugging her knees, silently repeating prayers. Elena, however, paced in circles, clutching the stone knife. The same fanatical fire burned in her eyes. "We must finish what was started 3,000 years ago," she said. "You're insane," Maria screamed. "Felix, Thomas, they're gone, and we're next." "They became part of history," Elena answered coldly. "And you can either help me or disappear too." At that moment, the ground beneath Maria's feet seemed to shudder. She felt something crawling deep within the soil, as if something more than just the boy's bones resided there. In the morning, Elena pulled an old manuscript from her backpack. It was a copy of medieval records she had once found in a nearby monastery. The text spoke of the eye of the buried, a boy who could not be finished off because he was the chosen one. Maria read with a trembling voice, "He sits between the world of the living and the world of the dead. If the ritual is completed, he will become the key to a door that must not be opened. If left unfinished, he will call for new and new victims until he finds the one who will bring the matter to its end." Elena smiled. "Do you understand? We are not cursed. We are chosen. We can complete the ritual." But Maria felt only icy dread, because it meant the boy wasn't buried to be killed. He was left alive so he could suffer eternally and eternally call for new ones. In the evening they heard voices, first quiet, like the wind, then clearer. They were the voices of Thomas and Felix. "Help me. It's dark here. Don't leave me." Maria rushed toward the pit and froze. In the darkness of the soil, beneath the boy's skull, hands were stirring. They were human but distorted, twisted, as if torn from another body. And it seemed they belonged to Thomas. "Do you see?" Elena whispered. "They have become part of him. But we can free them if we complete the ritual." Maria woke up in the middle of the night to find Elena leaning over her with the knife in her hand. "Don't be afraid. It is necessary. You must become the sacrifice." she said calmly. Maria screamed, pushed her away, and ran out of the tent. The wind whipped sand into her face, but she ran toward the pit. And suddenly she saw. The earth was open, as if it had split apart itself, and inside was a dark abyss that went deeper than they had ever dug. And down there, two eyes glowed. Not dead, alive. The boy's eyes. He was looking directly at her. Elena caught up to her by the pit. "You must! He chose you!" she screamed, clutching the knife. Maria struggled desperately, but suddenly heard a voice inside her head, childlike yet deep. "Don't listen to her. She wants to kill me, and I want to live. Help me, and I will release them." And Maria saw, in the soil around the pit, as if in glass, the frozen faces of Felix and Thomas. They opened their mouths but could not scream. The choice was horrifying. Either help Elena complete the ritual, or help the boy and free him. Maria wrenched the knife from Elena's hands and swung it at the boy, but he smiled. "Yes, kill me." Finally, he whispered, and she understood. All these thousands of years, he hadn't been waiting for liberation. He had been waiting for death, for the final blow that was never struck. His curse had kept him alive, and everyone who uncovered the pit became his continuation, a part of his shackles. Elena lunged at Maria. "Don't you dare! If he dies, the doors will open." But it was too late. Maria plunged the knife straight into the boy's chest. The earth howled. It wasn't a sound, but a vibration that pierced the bones. The sky darkened. All the tents were knocked down by the wind. And in the pit, a passage opened downward, a black tunnel from which a cold draft pulled. The boy finally closed his eyes, and with his last breath, he whispered, "Now you are in my place." Maria woke up in the darkness. She was sitting. She couldn't move her legs. Cold earth squeezed around her chest. She understood. She had been buried in the very same pit. She screamed, but her mouth filled with sand. Her eyes looked upward at a small patch of sky. Next to her sat Elena. She too was buried up to her shoulders, but smiling. "We are his guardians now," she said calmly. And from below, from the darkness, a whisper of hundreds of voices was heard, the voices of those who had once been there. The boy was no longer alone, and somewhere in the dark tunnel beneath the earth, something was slowly awakening. Felix's camera was found 2 weeks later. It lay on the surface, as if someone had placed it there deliberately. The last recording showed the pit. Empty, but the sound was more terrifying than any image. The voices of Maria and Elena were heard on the tape. They repeated the same thing. "I am looking at the sky. I am looking at the sky." And the last thing the investigators heard before the video cut off was childlike laughter. Darkness, not the darkness of night, but a thick, heavy, almost palpable void. Maria felt it even before she realized she was awake. She couldn't move. Her body was petrified in the cold, tightly packed earth. Only her chest and head remained free, but even breathing was difficult. The soil pressed down with incredible force. She tried to scream, but only a rasp escaped her throat. Sand from the bottom of the pit got into her mouth, clogging her airways. She choked, coughing, and this spasm of pain brought her fully to consciousness. She was in the pit, the very same pit. Her eyes, adjusted to the gloom, began to distinguish outlines. Right in front of her, an arm's length away, another head protruded from the ground. Elena. Her eyes were wide open, but there was neither fear nor panic in them. Only a calm, almost blissful contemplation. Are you conscious?" Maria rasped. Elena slowly turned her gaze toward her. Her lips stretched into a smile that looked like a malevolent grimace in the darkness. Conscious? Elena said softly. Now we have all of eternity to remember. We are the guardians, guardians of the door. Maria screamed again, this time trying to free her hands. But it was useless. The earth around her was stronger than concrete. She cried out the names of Thomas, Felix, even the boy, but only a silence that grew deeper and deeper answered. And then the silence began to come alive. First it was a rustle, as if thousands of insects were crawling in the surrounding soil. Then voices appeared, whispers, initially incomprehensible, then the words began to take shape. It's cold. It's dark. Help me. Maria froze, listening. She recognized Thomas's voice. It sounded confused and childishly helpless. Thomas? She whispered. The whisper grew louder, as if coming closer. Maria, are you here? Don't leave us. Don't leave. And then another voice joined, Felix's. He spoke German, but his tone held the same boundless despair. They are here, Maria asked Elena in terror. She nodded, not taking her eyes off the sky. They are everywhere, all the soil around us. It is them. Everyone he took, everyone who tried to free him. They are a part of this place, and now so are we. Maria felt her mind starting to crack. She wasn't an archaeologist who dreamed of discovery. She was just a student who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And now this cold pit was to be her eternity. Suddenly, the ground beneath them, barely perceptible, shuddered. The whispering abruptly ceased, as if frightened by something larger. A dead silence descended. Even the wind, which had whistled over the pit before, died down. Elena finally looked away from the sky and looked at Maria. A spark of that same fanaticism flashed in her eyes. It is waking up, she whispered. When the ritual is interrupted, the door remains ajar, and that which is behind it tries to escape. The boy was the lock, and we are now the watchdogs at this door. From the depth of the pit, from beneath their feet, a sound was heard, as if something large and heavy was slowly pushing through the rock layers. It was a grating, a grinding that chilled the blood. Maria felt a smell, sharp, sour, like rotten meat mixed with dusty earth. She tried to turn her head away but couldn't. From the darkness of the abyss beneath her came a genuine cold. Not winter cold, but one that penetrates to the bone, the cold of emptiness and oblivion. And suddenly she saw it, not with her eyes, for there was only gloom. She felt it with her mind, a huge formless presence crawling from the depth. It had no eyes, yet it was looking at them. It had no mouth, yet it was starving. It is looking at us, Maria whispered, feeling her consciousness about to disappear into that gaze of nothingness. Yes, Elena replied with strange satisfaction. And we are looking back. Our attention, our consciousness, that is the only thing keeping it there. In the dark, days merged into a continuous stream of darkness and despair. Maria lost track of time. The sun, appearing as a tiny patch of light above, was the only evidence of day turning into night. Rain became genuine torture. Water flooded the pit, and they barely avoided drowning, lifting their heads higher to breathe. The voices from beneath the earth became a part of their existence. Sometimes they cried. Sometimes they sang children's songs in Spanish, which sounded horrifying in this context. Sometimes they merged into a unified moan. Elena, it seemed, found her purpose in this. She talked to the voices, trying to classify them, to understand which era they belonged to. She became the priestess of this place. Her scientific fanaticism had found its ultimate application. Maria, however, was dying of fear. She prayed, recalled her childhood, sang to herself to avoid going mad. But the worst were the moments when the entity awakened, when that cold rose from the depth, and all the voices fell silent, sensing their master. In these moments, Maria felt her own consciousness beginning to dissolve into that abyss. One day when the patch of light in the sky was brightest, Maria heard distant voices. Not spectral, but real, living. Men's voices speaking Spanish. Hope, sharp and painful, pierced her. "Help!" she screamed with all her might. "We are here! Help!" Next to her, Alina suddenly became agitated. Not hope, but alarm flashed in her eyes. "Be silent!" she hissed. "You don't know what you are doing!" But Maria didn't listen. She screamed again and again. The voices drew closer. Faces appeared. Two men in hard hats. Locals, probably shepherds or workers. They looked into the pit in horror. "Holy Mother of God! What happened here? Are they alive? Pull us out," Maria pleaded. "Please, there is something awful here." One of the men rushed toward the pit, but his companion stopped him. "Wait, Juan! Look!" He pointed to the ground around the pit. Maria couldn't see, but she felt it. The soil around them began to stir slightly, as if coming alive. Tendrils of root-like forms appeared from under the ground, but they moved not like normal plants. They crawled like snakes. "Go away!" Elena suddenly roared. "This is a sacred place. You have no right to be here." The men backed away, their faces contorted with fear. "They're crazy, or something worse. We need to call the police." They began to retreat. Maria screamed, cursed them, but her voice was already drowning in the wind that suddenly rose. The wind howled as if something vast and invisible had become enraged. The men hadn't gotten far when something terrible happened. The ground beneath their feet suddenly gave way. A small depression formed, instantly turning into an abyss. The men didn't even have time to scream. They simply fell through the earth. Their cries were short and muffled. Then silence returned. Only the wind continued to howl. Maria fell silent, filled with a new, even deeper terror. She understood. The place wouldn't let them go. It was protecting itself. It had swallowed those who tried to interfere. "See?" Elena said calmly. "We cannot leave, and no one can free us. We are part of the system, like the firmness of this earth, like the cold of this pit. Accept it." That evening, for the first time, Maria didn't try to fight. She just sat and stared at the sky. And for the first time, she felt not only terror, but something else, a cold, dead submission. Elena changed more and more. Her body weakened, exhausted by immobility and poor nourishment. Sometimes they collected rainwater in a small vessel left near the pit. But her spirit, it seemed, grew stronger. She began to claim that she heard not only the voices of the victims, but also the voice of the garden. That's what she now called the entity. She told Maria about the dimensions beyond the door, about the old gods waiting for their time. Her speech became increasingly insane, but it contained a terrifying internal logic. "He wasn't just a boy," she said one day. "He was an anchor. His suffering, his aversion to death, kept the door closed. When you struck him, you didn't free him. You released a part of it here, a small part, but its essence began to leak out. Now we must become the new anchor, with our suffering." Maria no longer objected. She listened. These words were becoming her new reality, the only truth she had left. Weeks, perhaps months passed. One day, Alina suddenly fell silent. She hadn't spoken to Maria for a long time, only whispering something with the voices from under the earth. But this time, her silence was different, heavy, final. "Maria," she said quietly. Maria turned her head toward her. Alina's face was chalk white, but her eyes were clear. "I am leaving. My watch is over." "Where to?" Maria whispered, feeling cold dread engulf her again. "Down. To him. Someone has to be closer. Someone has to watch the door on the inside. And you will stay here, on the surface. You will be the new guardian. The first guardian." Maria wanted to protest but couldn't. She watched as Elena closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed and became shallower. Suddenly, Elena's body shuddered. A dark, almost black fluid flowed from her nose and mouth, and then it simply dissolved. It didn't decompose but dissolved, as if the earth simply swallowed it. In the spot where Elena's head had been moments before, only smooth, dark earth remained. Maria was left completely alone. Solitude was worse than any horror. Now there wasn't even an insane neighbor to talk to, just the voices, the whispers, and from time to time, the cold presence of the entity. But over time, Maria began to notice changes in herself. Her body weakened, but her mind became more sensitive. She began to distinguish individual personalities in the whispers. She learned the names of those who had died here centuries ago. She saw their memories, not as dreams, but as vivid images projected onto the gray sky above her. She learned to differentiate the fresh voices, Thomas, Felix, those two men, from the ancient ones. The boy's voice was the quietest, but it was always there. He no longer suffered. He simply was. Part of the system. And one day she felt something new. She could influence the earth, not strongly, just enough to make a small stone near the edge of the pit stir. But it was power. It was control. The place had accepted her. More undefined time passed. A new stranger approached the pit. It was a young man, a local, probably curious about why the archaeologist's equipment was left in this pasture. He cautiously looked into the pit and saw only Maria, pale with an emaciated face but alive. "Señorita, what happened to you?" Maria looked at him. There was neither hope nor fear in her eyes, only a calm, cold awareness. "Go away," she said softly. "It is dangerous here." But the young man, full of good intentions, was already leaning over to try and pull her out. "Don't be afraid. I will help you." At that moment, Maria felt a pulsation. It wasn't her thought, but a command that came from the depths, from the place where Elena had gone, a command to protect. The ground beneath the young man's feet shook. He screamed and tried to step back, but it was too late. The soil collapsed and he fell into a shallow pit that formed next to Maria. The earth quickly filled the void, swallowing him up to his chest. His screams were horrifying. He pleaded, he cried. Maria looked at him with her glassy eyes. No emotion, only observation. "Now you are part of this place," she said monotonously. "Be calm. You will get used to it someday." Many years later, this area of land was fenced off and had a bad reputation. Locals avoided it, whispering stories of the cursed pit and the white woman who guarded it. No one dared to go near. Sometimes lost tourists disappeared, but the police never found anything. In the pit sat only one figure, Maria. Her hair had been bleached white by the sun. Her eyes had lost their color and resembled two gray stones. She wasn't dead. She was something else, a sentinel. the guardian of the door. She no longer communicated with the voices. She controlled them. She felt every movement of the soil for miles around. She could summon fog to ward off the curious or create a shallow trap for the overly bold. The boy in the pit finally found peace. His mission was complete. Now his place was occupied by another soul, stronger, firmer, doomed to eternal watching. And when the moon lit up the dry Spanish plain at night, one could see a light mist rising from the seemingly empty pit, and in it, thousands of tiny sparks like stars. They were not stars. They were consciousnesses, all those who had ever perished in this place, and they watched the sky, waiting, watching. And from the depth came only one sound, Maria's steady, calm breathing, the sentinel, the eternal guardian of the abyss she had once helped to open.